The chapel smelled like lilies and disappointment. I sat alone in the third row, behind the cousins who pretended I wasn't there. Grandpa's portrait rested on an easel near the altar stern, proud, unmistakably him. I kept staring at his eyes in the photo, trying to hear what he'd say if he could see this circus. No one said my name when I arrived. No one hugged me. I wasn't even offered a seat at the front. Aunt Mary shifted uncomfortably when I walked past her, whispering something to Lisa like I was a stain that hadn't dried yet. She just wants to see if she gets anything, Lisa whispered, loud enough for me to hear. She was barely around. Aunt Mary added, she left the family years ago. I didn't correct them. I didn't remind them that I was the only one who stayed with Grandpa during his last Christmas. Or that I was the one who drove him to all his medical appointments when no one else bothered. That I was the one who brought him blueberry scones every Sunday because he once said they reminded him of Grandma. None of it mattered now, not to them. After the ceremony, everyone moved to Grandpa's house like vultures circling cold leftovers. The front lawn hadn't been mowed in weeks, and the flower beds were turning brown. Grandpa would have hated that. I stepped inside and felt the air shift. The furniture was still in the same place, the grandfather clock still ticking in that slow, judgmental rhythm. Someone had brought in catered sandwiches. My Uncle Robert was already halfway through one. He really didn't leave a lot behind. He said, mouth full, leafing through a stack of manila folders. Most of it's tied up in the house. Did he say anything about accounts? Lee asked, already eyeing the cabinet where Grandpa kept his legal stuff. Robert shrugged. Lawyer said it's all being split evenly. Well, not all of it. My stomach clenched. What do you mean? I asked. He looked at me like I'd just walked into the wrong meeting. You're not on it? He said casually. Said he amended the will last year. Left you out. I blinked. It doesn't make any sense. Grandpa and he had his reasons. Aunt Mary cut in sharply. You distanced yourself from the family. No, I didn't. Look, Robert interrupted. It's nothing personal. But you weren't exactly around when things got hard. That wasn't true. That was the part that hurt the most. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. They already had their version of the story. Nothing I said would change it. Later that night, when the house had quieted and everyone was too drunk or too tired to pretend, they liked each other, I slipped away from the guest room and walked down the hall toward Grandpa's study. The door creaked. Same heavy wood, same brass knob. I flicked on the light and everything came rushing back. The smell of cedar and old paper, the quiet hum of the radiator in the corner. His desk was still covered in stacks of books and notes he'd never finished. The globe in the corner was still tilted the wrong way. I pulled back the worn leather chair and sat down. My hands hovered over the desk drawers. Something in me didn't want to open them, like I was violating something sacred. But I had to know. The top drawers were full of receipts, old stamps, pens that didn't work anymore. I tried the bottom left locked. I took a breath, then reached into the inside pocket of the suit jacket I was wearing. The key was still there. Grandpa had handed it to me last year after a long breakfast where we didn't say much, just in case, he'd whispered. They won't look where they're not allowed. I slid the key into the lock and turned it. The drawer popped open. At first, it looked empty. Then I saw it. A small black leather folder tucked behind a stack of bank envelopes. I pulled it out carefully, no label, just a faint embossing on the corner. S.J. Whitmore, his full name. I opened it. The first page was a letter, handwritten. If you're reading this, they've already told you lies. Don't believe a word. The truth is in the account ending in 8172. You're the only one I trust. Love, Grandpa. I flipped the next page. It was a bank statement, a large trust account. $4.8 million. My heart stopped. It wasn't a joint account. It was in my name, only mine. I flipped again. A notarized document from 6 months ago. Grandpa had transferred the funds quietly, bypassing the estate. They had no idea. They thought, I got nothing. They thought cutting me out of the official will meant I lost. But Grandpa hadn't left me out. He'd left me everything. I closed the folder carefully and slipped it back into the drawer, my hands trembling so badly I had to steady myself on the desk. The quiet of Grandpa's study seemed to press in on me from all sides. Like the room itself was holding its breath, waiting for what I'd do next. I didn't want to face the storm I knew was coming, but I had no choice. This secret Grandpa's secret was my only lifeline. It's the truth that no one expected, no one had prepared for. The next morning, the house was buzzing with the usual chatter of relatives who thought the will reading had sealed their victories. Aunt Mary was in the kitchen, pouring coffee with that forced smile she wore when things were just a little too awkward. Uncle Robert leaned casually against the counter, scrolling on his phone like the entire estate was his for the taking. I stepped into the room and cleared my throat, drawing every eye toward me. The conversations died instantly. The tension cracked. The air like electricity. "I found something last night," I said slowly, feeling all their gazes sharpen like knives. "Something you didn't want me to see." Robert smirked, setting down his phone. "Oh yeah? And what's that supposed to be?" I pulled the black leather folder from my bag and placed it on the table. The folds of paper caught the morning, light casting shadows like a secret waiting to explode. "This," I said, "is Grandpa's trust account. $4.8 million. And it's in my name." The words seemed to freeze time. Aunt Mary's grip tightened on her coffee cup, her knuckles whitening. Emily blinked rapidly, eyes wide like she was trying to process a lie she'd been told her whole life. Robert scoffed. "You expect us to believe you just found this? After all the stories, the gossip, the lies." That Grandpa suddenly changed his mind. I met his gaze unwavering. Grandpa didn't change his mind. He made sure I was protected. And he knew you wouldn't understand what loyalty really meant. Mary's lips pressed into a thin line. "You weren't around when it mattered. You left." I bit back the hurt. That was the lie I'd been forced to swallow for years. The truth was, I had been there every time Grandpa needed me. I was the one who never walked away. But they didn't want the truth. They wanted me invisible, erased. And now that invisibility was broken. The moment I handed the black leather folder to the lawyer, a heavy silence fell over the room. His normally impassive face betrayed the slightest flicker of surprise, a subtle raise of his eyebrows that no one else seemed to notice but me. He carefully opened the folder, pulling out the documents with reverence, as if holding fragile proof of a secret long buried. "Where did you find these?" he asked, his voice low but steady. "In Grandpa's study," I said. "In the locked drawer, behind piles of papers no one bothered to look through." He flipped through the pages, slowly bank statements, notarized documents, trust agreements. His eyes scanned every word, every signature, searching for any hint of forgery or deceit. "This," he said, pointing at a document with the header "Revocable Trust Agreement," "is a legal trust created 6 months ago. This means the assets here bypass the probate process and go directly to the named beneficiary." I swallowed hard. This was the confirmation I'd hoped for, but also the beginning of a war I wasn't sure I was ready to fight. "It's all in your name." The lawyer continued, looking up at me with a mix of respect and caution. "Your grandfather made sure this was clear and legally binding." Aunt Mary gasped sharply. "This is impossible." "How could he do this without telling us? We're the family," Uncle Robert sneered. "You expect us to just accept this? Do you think you can waltz in here with some dusty old papers and claim what's ours?" Their voices rose, but I stayed calm. I had to. If I lost my temper, they would paint me as the villain, the greedy outcast. "Grandpa didn't want this to be a circus," I said, voice steady but firm. "He trusted me because I was the one who cared, the one who stayed when everyone else left." Lisa scoffed from the corner. "Stayed? You left years ago. You don't get to play the victim now." That was the cruelest lie of all. They'd rewritten the story so many times, It was almost unrecognizable. But I had Grandpa's words, his trust. His watch, the symbol of his faith in me. I glanced down at the watch on my wrist. It's cold metal, reassuring. The lawyer looked at the family, his tone turning serious. Legally, this trust holds weight. Contesting it will be difficult and costly. If anyone wishes to challenge it, they will have to prove fraud, undue influence, or incapacity on the part of your grandfather when the trust was created. Roberts scoffed. Good luck with that. Later. That day, whispers filled the house like smoke curling under the doors. My relatives gathered in tight groups, their eyes flickering between me and the documents they refused to acknowledge. I heard Aunt Mary tell Lisa, "This is going to ruin the family." I heard Robert mutter, "She's just a gold digger." But I refused to let their words cut me down.